Okay, we're doing the history of Israel, part seven, covering from Muhammad. I think it's to 1920. Muhammad was born in Mecca in 570 AD. And when he was about 40 years old, he had this vision that there was no God but Allah, and Muhammad was his prophet. Muhammad went to Medina in June of 622 AD. He was only able to gain 150 converts in 13 years in Mecca, his city of birth. He attempted to get Christians to join him by adopting some of the traditions of the Jews and the Christians. However, Muhammad was rejected, which set him against the Christians and the Jews. And the people of Mecca rejected him, and he fled for his life to Medina. And the citizens of Medina accepted him, and he quickly gained followers there. And Muhammad had now succeeded in unifying the nomadic tribes of Arabian Peninsula. They were now the most powerful group in the region and were driven by Muhammad's Islamic religion. The Muslims successfully invaded Syria and Palestine in 634 AD, and the Muslim advance into Western Europe was finally stopped at the Battle of Tours in 732 AD by the Christian leader Charles Martel. The Fatimid Empire conquered Jerusalem, including Egypt, Syria, and Hejaz in 969 AD. In 10,009 AD, the Muslims ordered the complete destruction of the Holy Church of the Sepulchre. They also destroyed some 30,000 Christian buildings. And the Seljuks, from 1072 to 1099 AD, were Turks and defeated the Fatimids, and they occupied Jerusalem in AD 1076. The Seljuks were from the borders of China and were converts to Islam. They persecuted Christians and Jews, and Jerusalem was then occupied by the Shiite Muslims, who were enemies of the Sunni Muslims, the Seljuks. The period of Crusades from 1099 AD to 1291 AD, the aggression of the Muslims had grown worse, and now, after 450 years of forced conversions, plunder, and the Christians were ready to act. The Muslims' quest for greed and lust for denomination of the non-Muslims and their property caused the Crusades, and the Christians acted in self-defense and a desire to take back Jerusalem and the Holy Land that had been taken by the Muslims. The most important motivation for the Crusades was to recover the Holy Land from the Muslims. Then, in the 7th century, Christianity was the dominant religion of power and wealth. And this made Christians a target for Muslims, and it continues to remain that way down to this day. Shortly after Muhammad's death, the Muslims came after the Christians. They took all of North Africa and Spain before the 8th century. The Christian culture was done away with, and they were forced to either deny their religion, convert to Islam, or die. And just as it is happening today in the 21st century, we have the same thing. It was at this point that Constantinople called for the help of the fellow Christians, which gave birth to the Crusades. Because Muslims were violently killing Christians, the Crusaders rose up against the Muslims by slaughtering Christians, and Muslims had become an enemy to Christ and to his followers. The Christians were the losers in the Crusades. After the Crusades, the Mamelukes ruled from 1250 to 1517 AD. The Mameluke were slave soldiers of Egyptians, and these soldiers revolted against their masters and took over Egypt. And they became a powerful political and military power in the Levant, Mesopotamia, and India, and they seized the Sultanate of Egypt and Syria for themselves. Then the Mamelukes demolished Antioch in 1268 AD, and then in 1281 AD they defeated the Mongols and then turned their attention back to the Crusades and captured Tripoli in 1290 AD. They fought against the Crusaders and drove them out of the Levant by 1291 and ended the era of the Crusades. And the Jews and Christians living in Palestine were now required by law to wear yellow turbans and the Christians blue to distinguish them from the first-class Muslims. The Mamelukes were defeated by the Ottoman Turks and took over Palestine, the entire Holy Land. They ruled from 1517 to 1917. And the Turks had now been in control of Jerusalem for 500 years. And Palestine was a part of the Ottoman Empire. Britain was planning to invade the Ottoman Empire. And in 1915, there was an agreement with the Emir of Mecca in which Britain promised to support Arab independence in the Middle East. And then in 1916, there was a secret agreement with France to divide the spoils of war. In 1917, Britain issued the Balfour Declaration that promised the Zionists support for establishing a home for Jewish people in Palestine. The declaration was issued on November 2nd, 1917, and was accepted by the League of Nations, which was later changed to the United Nations, on July 24th, 1922. Britain was given temporary administrative control of Palestine. And then the Ottoman Empire entered World War I in 1917. And the British troops invade all of the Ottoman Empire and the Middle East, conquering Jerusalem. The Middle East was then divided into mandate areas under the British and French administration. And the British were given Palestine, which included the land Israel has today, Jordan, Gaza, and the West Bank. The national home for the Jews in Palestine was incorporated into the Mandate Agreement. The Arabs wanted to plan to realize the national aspirations of both the Jews and the Arabs, but they lost Damascus to the French, and the cooperation with the Jews then stopped. Arabs then wanted Jerusalem and Palestine, and in 1920 the Arabs attacked the Jews in Jerusalem, with more riots occurring in 1921 in Jaffa, and violence spread throughout Palestine then. And there has never been an independent Arab state in Palestine. There has never been a national government, a nation or government called Palestine. And Israel took the land from the Canaanites, and their land was called Judea. In 135 AD, the Romans changed the name of Judea to Philistia or Palestine. And this was in an attempt to disconnect the name or disconnect the land from the name of the Israelites. A remnant of Jews have been in the Holy Land. They've been in the Holy Land for over 3,000 years. I thank you for listening.